Greetings, colleagues from around the world. My name is Stephen Ramage, and I'm from the Group on Earth Observations, GEO, Secretariat. Welcome to this inaugural GEO Indigenous Summit, and I'm going to hand over to one of our co-organisers, James Rattlingleaf Sr., who will take us through the opening of the sessions.
Amidakiapi, le ampetuki, lila washter, wachian kapolo. James Rallingleaf Imachapi, Chesapa, Ianka, Ochanku, Hemataha, na Iha Chante, na Pechi Zapolo. Friends and relatives, my name is James Rallingleaf. I greet you with a good heart and a handshake today from the Black Hills of South Dakota. When we gather as Indigenous people, it's important that we start our meetings, our gatherings in a good way. And we do that by practicing our tribal protocols and tribal practices. So today we want to open our summit with a prayer. And we asked one of our traditional and cultural leaders, Mr. Phil Fiegel, to come and render a prayer for us. It's important that we begin these meetings with prayer so that it can help us and strengthen us so that we can make decisions to help our people. So with that, I want to welcome Phil Fiegel. Phil, okahe.
O hao me takiapi. Iuha chante wastia nape chiuzapalo. I shake your hands with a good heart. My name is Phil Two Eagle. I'm Sichango Lakota from the Rosebud Sioux Indian Reservation in South Dakota. We are known as the Sichango Lakota Oyate. We are part of the Ocheti Shakoi, the 7 council fires of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people across the United States and Canada. I want to welcome you to this summit, a very historic time for us as Indigenous people. As Lakota Oyate, we are concerned about the environment. We pray to the 4 directions. And we want to share our knowledge, to teach the world about what is happening across Indigenous countries, that each Indigenous nation has their own knowledge. We must protect Mother Earth. She cares for us, and we have to care for her. When we pray for Mother Earth so that she can heal. We want to think about the future generations in the Lakota way. We talk about and we think about the next 7 generations and the unborn children. For us, a generation is 72 years. 1 generation is 72 years. And to think ahead 7 generations is over 500 years. So what we do today is very important to help the next 7 generations. We want to leave this world in a better place for the future. And with that, I want to offer a prayer so that our energies can come together. And I want to remember one of our leaders, Patanka Iotaka Tidingbu, has said that let us put our minds together so that we can do something for the future generations. Ho ate wakantraka le ampeto ki trokea moshina chichila. Trokata kia tiong kia pikile pechel unchimaka. Taku opta hiukte. Taku waste unkipal zokte. Pechel trokata kia uichoi sachinkte. Na trate topata kia. Hoye waye. Oyate tona kakijapi. Na zani chimpi. La kota trataha ya tiwahe nglepi kilena. Taku waste sloya chimpi. Na taku waste wanka chimpi. Na oyate washi chumpi kilena. Heche wa okia umpikte. Na trokata kia ushich ya hoya pikile na umpikte. Na anaroptan pikile wopile chichi. Mitake oyasi. Thank you.
And thank you, many thanks to Phil to Eagle for the opening prayers and for such strong sentiments. Now we go back to James Rathlingleaf Sr., who is a cultural intelligence consultant and one of the co-founders of the GEO Indigenous Alliance. So back to you, James.
Hamidakiapi, Chante Westanape Chizapalo, James Rathlingleaf Machiapi, Nasichangala Kote Mataha. Welcome to the 2020 GEO Indigenous Alliance Summit. We're glad you're here, and we're thankful that that we can gather together like this, even though it's an online platform. Still, I think we can do good things together. And so we look forward to the next 3 days of learning from you, listening to you, and really learning how we can lead with you to really create a strong alliance so that we can support each other, learn from one another, and continue to do the good things we need to do. About a year ago, myself and others who you'll hear gathered in Canberra, Australia, and we didn't know each other. But 5 days later, we came together and agreed and committed to develop what we call the GEO Indigenous Alliance, with the purpose of protecting and sustaining our tribal cultural heritage, utilizing Earth observation, science, data, and technology. So this summit is a result of that commitment. We know we got a long ways to go in terms of building this alliance so that it can do good. It can meet the needs, but also can create more opportunities. When I was a young man, many years ago, I was presented this eagle feather by an elder from the Nimipu, or the Nez Perce tribe here in America. And when he gave me this eagle feather, he encouraged me and talked to me to say that when you ever get an opportunity to lead or provide leadership, that you do it in a good way, and you do it with our cultural or indigenous values, and you do it for the people today and also for the future. So that's what we really have before us today, is really a great opportunity. These next 3 days, we're going to learn a lot. I think we're going to hear a lot, and I think we're going to get ideas. So let's put our minds together, put our hearts together, to really develop an agenda for the future of how we can work together as Indigenous people who use Earth observations. We welcome our allies and our partners also to the summit. They play an important role as we advance, as we learn together to do this work that's needed. So I'm grateful today. My heart is full and happy to see all of you here today with us, and to really learn and to hear from your stories of how we do this work. So finally, I want to thank Earth Observations for supporting the Alliance and supporting this summit. Without them, we could not do it. So let's have a great time. Let's encourage one another. Let's help one another. so that we can create a good future for our children. We say in our Lakota language, Wopila Tanka, Ichichapalo. Thank you all very much. And also, Mitakuya Oyasi, all my relations.
Thank you, James. So now we move to Titus Le Tapo from the Samburu tribe in Kenya. And Titus is the managing director of the Sarara Foundation, and he's another of the co-founders of the GEO Indigenous Alliance. So if we can have Titus now, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. My name is Titus Le Tapo, working with Sarara Foundation, which is a non-profit organization based in Kenya. We work with the indigenous people, the Samburu community, to support them on a long-term paradigm shift that is designed to catalyze a healthy, resilient, and prosperous landscape for both indigenous people, in this case the Samburu community, and wildlife. And we do this in providing a better alternative livelihood, providing better education or maybe good education, and also we look at the issues on environment, or maybe to improve the rangeland that the community livestock depend on. Again, let me take this opportunity as a founding member for the GEO Indigenous Alliance to welcome all of you to this GEO Indigenous Summit 2020. Your participation and contribution will definitely go a long way in supporting the voices of indigenous people across the world in terms of geo data, and again transformation of this data to support the indigenous people. We started this back in 2019 when we are in Canberra on Geo Week, which was a dedicated event focused on inclusive dialogue with indigenous communities to discuss how Earth observation can better support communities in terms of reporting. The Alliance maybe has a strong belief that we can use the geo data to improve the livelihoods of our communities, or maybe indigenous communities across the globe. And all the indigenous communities have a strong voice, and they feel that they have a responsibility of taking care of the earth by engaging effectively with one another. And also we have a commitment to ensure that the earth is again productive and can support the environment. So let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you, and let's be free. Let's ask questions. Let's participate fully. And let's also enjoy, and let's make friendship and friends. Thank you.
So thank you to Titus. Asante Sana. Next is Mario Vargas Shacaim from the Shuar community in the Ecuadorian Amazon. He's a representative of COICA, which is the coordinator of indigenous organizations in the Amazon River Basin, and he's also a co-founder of the GEO Indigenous Alliance. So over to Mario this time.
Mi nombre es Shacaim Vargas, de la Nacionalidad Shuar de la Amazonía ecuatoriana. Quisiera darles la bienvenida a todos los presentes de diferentes continentes a la cumbre denominado GEO, en donde nosotros, como pueblos indígenas, estaremos revelando la importancia de los mapas, de los datos de la tierra, de la tecnología que en la actualidad nosotros como pueblos indígenas estamos haciendo uso y que también sirve para la defensa territorial. Por lo tanto, invito a la comunidad internacional para seguir apoyando, para seguir fortaleciendo, defendiendo nuestros territorios, nuestros recursos. Necesitamos el apoyo internacional en temas de datos satelitales, tecnología, internet, conexión. De esta forma difundir nuestra preocupación que actualmente está viviendo nuestra naturaleza. Muchas gracias.
And so, thank you, Mario. Muchas gracias. Now we have one of the people behind today, Diana Mastracchi. Diana runs Space for Innovation and is currently a communications consultant with the GEO Secretariat, and she is also one of the co-founders of the GEO Indigenous Alliance. So let's go to Diana now.
My name is Diana Mastracchi, and it's an honor for me today to welcome you to the GEO Indigenous Summit 2020. In 2019, I had the pleasure to meet and gather in Canberra, Australia, with Indigenous leaders on this panel. Since then, I have been working with and for the GEO Indigenous Alliance, and it's an honor for me today to introduce you to the 5 pathways that the Alliance seeks to pursue to achieve its vision. So pathway number 1, it's education. This pathway seeks to utilize both geotechnologies and data to enhance the transfer of intergenerational knowledge, promoting this unique cultural aspect by engaging both Indigenous youth and their elders in meaningful and culturally relevant projects that require using knowledge and methods from across disciplines and knowledge systems. Pathway number 2 is partnerships. The Alliance will focus on strengthening relationships and developing new connections between Indigenous people and the GEO community. Pathway number 3 is the Indigenous GEO workforce. The Alliance will seek to make geotechnologies more meaningful for Indigenous youth and young adults. Pathway number 4 is the conservation and stewardship of Indigenous cultural heritage. This pathway recognizes the need to try to find the third space between science and traditional knowledge, finding common ground in a culturally appropriate way. And last but not least, to provide advisory to the GEO community on how to engage with Indigenous communities and work with Indigenous knowledge, cultural values, and epistemologies. Since last year, we have been working on the governance of the Alliance, building relationships, and have organized the GEO Indigenous Hack for COVID to co-design culturally relevant solutions with and for Indigenous communities to tackle this pandemic. During the summit, you will hear from speakers from 23 different Indigenous communities, from Alaska all the way to New Zealand. I look forward to learning and building meaningful relationships with all of you. Thank you.
And thank you, Diana. Grazie mille. So our penultimate opening speaker is Tatiana Valovaya, who is the 13th Director General of the United Nations Office in Geneva. So over to Tatiana's video, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is my great pleasure to open the GEO Indigenous Summit 2020. I wish to thank the Group on Earth Observation Secretariat for organizing this online summit despite challenging circumstances. Today's summit is an opportunity to acknowledge the important contribution of Indigenous peoples to global Earth observation and to reaffirm the commitment the international community took to leave no one behind when implementing the Agenda for Sustainable Development. An estimated 476 million indigenous people live in the world, across 90 countries, constituting more than 5,000 different ethnic groups with distinct cultures, livelihood practices, values, and beliefs profoundly embedded in their collective relationship with the land they live on for millennia. While they make up only 6% of the global population, indigenous peoples inhabit approximately 85% of the areas proposed for biodiversity conservation worldwide. The protection of the rights of indigenous peoples is of fundamental importance for the United Nations. The landmark adoption of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in 2007 was an important milestone. The declaration established a universal framework of minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of the indigenous peoples across the world. Indigenous peoples and local communities are essential partners in global efforts to conserve biodiversity, mitigate climate change, and put an end to rampant environmental degradation. The identities, cultures, traditional knowledge, and ways of life of indigenous people are inextricably linked to nature. Better than anyone, they feel the breath of the earth. To combat climate change and its adverse impact, we need all stakeholders on board, particularly indigenous peoples, who are the custodians of invaluable traditional knowledge about the sustainable use of land and natural resources. Today's summit will highlight the unique role indigenous peoples and local communities play in gathering accurate information about the health of our planet. We must include indigenous perspectives in natural resources planning and management and foster collaborations at local, regional, and international level. We have a responsibility before future generations to take care of our planet by engaging actively and effectively, building partnerships and learning from each other. From the Philippines to Guyana, and from the ice-covered lands of the Arctic Circle to the deserts of Australia, indigenous people have much to teach our world. I wish you a very successful summit. Thank you.
And thank you, Tatiana. Спасибо. So our final opening speaker is Gilberto Camara, the GEO Secretary Director. So we will do this final opening talk, and then I'll provide some information about the live sessions that start at 1500 CET. So if we can go to Gilberto now, please.
Hello and welcome to the GEO Indigenous Summit. As Director of the GEO Secretariat, we feel privileged to have this week the opportunity to allow the global community to connect to a very distinguished set of guests from the indigenous communities, which will show how they're using Earth observations to continue with their quest to preserve and to fight for a harmonious relationship between humans and nature. We have much to learn from indigenous communities. We have lost many of the lessons that they still hold. For that reason, indigenous communities hold both the past and the future of our civilization. They hold the past because they have preserved lessons and history and understanding that we have lost in the midst of our technological civilization. Since the Industrial Revolution, when, as Karl Marx used to say, all that is solid melts into air, we have transformed the world. We have shaped every bit of the earth to our wills, and with that, we have lost respect for nature. We have lost respect for the balance of the use of natural resources. We have dealt as if the planet were an endless frontier. And this is no future. And if we continue this way, we're going to exhaust the planet and we're going to leave nothing for our future civilizations. In that respect, the indigenous communities also represent the future, insofar as they are teaching us lessons that we have lost, lessons that we need to understand, how to deal with nature, how to respect, how to make a living in a harmonious way. And they're going to show us in the next weeks how they're using Earth's observations, not only to preserve their well-being, but also to develop a relationship with the natural world that is absolutely necessary for the 21st century. And it's an enormous honor that we have gathered together such a distinguished group of leaders. We have much to learn from them, and we're very grateful that they are here with us in the next days. Thank you so much, and have a productive summit.
Okay, so thank you, Gilberto. Muy obrigado. Many powerful words from our opening speakers, and our first live session, well, I'm live, but our first live session with other speakers will start in just under 30 minutes. So that's at 1500 hours CET, i.e. 3 p.m. here in Geneva. So if you can please reconnect for the COVID-19 session in just under 30 minutes, and that is moderated by my good friend and colleague, Mr. James Rattlingleaf Sr. If you join us again in around 30 minutes, and you will be able to hear that session. Thank you for joining.